So I'm finally here to deliver the Dr. Stone episode review. I know it's a little bit late, and as I said last week, I was taking a quick trip to Florida because of my sister, and so a lot of things are delayed. For instance, this episode review, to Demon Slayer, to Vinland Saga, etc, etc. It's very obvious, and basically, you know, I'm finally here to deliver the newest episode review. I do know that tomorrow the next episode comes out, but it's better late than never. But okay, this episode of Dr. Stone, I have to say, is quite enjoyable. It's something else, so to say. Because when you think about the previous episode with finding out about Chrome, and when you think about his interaction with our MC Senku, he was a really good addition. Like, he was a really great character, and this episode continues that theme where, you know, Senku is showcasing his smarts, his intelligence, and, you know, teaching them how the old world was like, but also he is being taught things that even himself he didn't realize when he first came to this stone world, which is something I really liked about this episode, which really just shows the amount of depth that is put into Dr. Stone from the writer. And what I mean is I'm talking about the North Star. See, it's something that many don't really think about, and I think if the series never really even mentioned it, most people would not have ever really taken a moment to actually think about it. They would have never have thought about the North Star actually changing positions. I know I wouldn't have, but obviously the writer really wants to cover his basis and get everything out of the way to where everything makes sense. And that, for instance, is that the North Star has moved. So to kind of explain, obviously, it's kind of common sense, but basically, as we all know, when we are on our planet Earth, we are rotating constantly, and we're the ones that are moving, and when the stars look like they're moving, it's actually just us. However, we do know that stars do move. They do move out in space. We either move far away from it, they're moving away from us, etc, etc, but things out in space are moving, but it's so little in terms of the grand scheme of things that you don't really notice, unless thousands of years pass. And since technically 3,000 years passed, obviously, you know, there would be a major difference between the North Star's position when Senku was still around, when civilization was around. So I do like just how much it's moved in 3,000 years, that, oh yeah, it's no longer actually true north. It's a great little tidbit of information where basically you can't truly follow the North Star anymore because it isn't true north anymore. Now, another thing too I do like is that you can see clearly that some of the stories, like the folk tales that was, you know, told in this episode, like Momotaro, is something that was used in our, you know, ancient civilization, and I kind of want to clarify. So, the story of Momotaro, besides of what the message is today, with our main theme, you kind of can look at the story the way it was passed down to these new people that's a part of the stone world, as it was a warning. It was a warning story, basically to teach children to stay away from these creatures, to be very weary of these certain individual dangerous animals throughout the world, like alligators, etc. And it's something that, you know, in real life, what we have done. We have passed down stories throughout, you know, generations that basically tells, like, you need to be careful of so-and-so, watch out for so-and-so. It's something that has happened in our society. So it makes sense that, you know, a story of, let's say, you know, Momotaro or another story would be slightly altered in a way just to be able to teach kids how to be weary of this world, what to watch out for. So it is kind of interesting. I do wonder kind of why, you know, the story in the first place, how it survived. I mean, obviously, someone had to break out of stone. How they did is the major question. But if the story was passed on, what necessarily happened? Did the individual actually pass on the story wrong? Or was the story deliberately said like that to, like I said, warn kids? Or has it been so long since the story was told that the overall message of the story has been lost? Like, it's kind of like when you tell a story to someone. Like, example. Let's say, okay, today I got on my bike and I rode 10 miles. And let's say somehow this story made waves and people spread it down the line of generations. Eventually the story would probably not be the same. You spread it amongst 10 to 15 people, the story's probably going to be altered in some degree, and that's basically probably what happened to Momotaro. Because there really isn't any record of paper and stuff, clearly from what we can see, this must mean that the stories can be technically altered in some way, fabricated, and they aren't the same as the originals, so it falls in line with the logic of how real life is too. So, once again, little information that really just adds to the grand scheme of things of Dr. Stone. But okay, the main point of this episode, though, is reaching the Iron Age. It's something that is incredibly important. It's something that, you know, all the characters need to reach, because iron is something that is very useful. To this day, we still use iron for a lot of different things in our products. So, if you're able to somehow melt and, you know, kind of manipulate iron, you definitely have made major headway in technology. And that's kind of what Senku and the group tried to do within this episode, but then they were instantly reminded that reaching the Iron Age, even if you know how to do it, isn't something that is relatively easy. It requires a lot of manpower to even be able to melt down, you know, iron in the first place. Because if you're trying to use man-made methods of, let's say, building a fire or something, you know, it's going to be very hard to do. And, you know, back in the past, when, you know, iron was first being found out about, you know, how to make it, it was something that was incredibly hard. Even to this day, it's slightly hard. It's easier now that we have machines and stuff, but at the very least, you know, it's easier now. But in the past, it was very hard. It took so many people to be able to melt down stuff, like to be able to get iron to melt down, that it's almost impossible for that little group with Senku to be able to do it. So they need to recruit more people. So the Iron Age kind of got postponed until they get more people, which makes it to where Senku has to focus on other options, which that means to progress the culinary section of society, which this is something that many typically tend to forget when it comes to cooking. Cooking is another form of science. It really is, because when you think about science, it's all about concoctions, like you're throwing together different things to be able to make a chemical reaction. That's exactly how science is. But when you think about food, it's the exact same thing. It really is. So you can kind of say Gordon Ramsay, he's a scientist himself, because he's able to mix so many different ingredients and make them work and make it hit your taste buds in a certain way that you're just like, wow. And that's kind of what food is. So Senku knowing how to make food and how to build it and all that is something that isn't out of the realm of what a scientist can do, because that's exactly what they do. They mix things. And so if he knows the compounds, the chemical compounds, to really be able to mess with your tongue and all that to make you enjoy it, then obviously he can do it. So yeah, I do think that it's nice to see that the food area of the world is being progressed, because I think that's something very important. Because they need to be able to know techniques like preserving food, like using salt. I don't know if the characters actually have that or not. It hasn't really been explained properly, but if they can learn how to use salt to be able to, like, preserve their food a little bit longer, to also being able to have food that can last a lot longer without perishing, canning food, etc., you know, it would be relatively helpful. So I do think that focusing on food is definitely a great way to kind of get people in your favor, because it is something that has always caused disputes in the past. When you think about our history as a species, if there is one thing that does cause a lot of problems, one thing usually, it's food. Food is a big thing, and if you run out of food, obviously fights are going to break out. And that's basically what, you know, Senku is talking about, is if, you know, he could figure out a way to make good food, people can love it, obviously he would win their heart, because that's what people need. Everybody needs food. Regardless of who you are, everybody needs food. And if you make good food and people love it, they're going to be lining up to get it, and that's basically what he's trying to do. So if he can win over their stomach, he basically can win over their heart, to where he can have them help him to progress and make even better food for them and other technology throughout, you know, their civilization. But okay, enough of that for the time being. I do want to talk about the, I'm trying to figure, Suika, you know, the Melon girl. I don't really know how to peg her right now. She was introduced within this episode, and even though she was introduced, there wasn't really a lot of time focused on her, which isn't necessarily bad, especially because of how the character is introduced and what we got from her. It is a good amount of characterization, but there wasn't a lot of focus on her to really know what she is, or who she is, why she is like she is. And that's something I'm very curious about, and I do hope it gets explained very soon. But to get into what I'm talking about, Suika, she has this melon on her head. She pops up. She's very cute, by the way. I love her design. It's very unique. But it made me wonder, like, why is she wearing that melon? Is it just because she wants to be a cute mascot-looking character? Like, you know, is that the whole purpose of it? Or is it because she's hiding her face? And if I'm assuming anything, maybe the reason why she's hiding her face is a multiple of reasons. Like, either A, she's embarrassed of her face because maybe she looks like a guy or girl, etc., whoever knows, because this is something that you see in Kimetsu no Yaiba, so it isn't necessarily a stretch. But another way you can look at it is that maybe her face is horribly disfigured. Maybe she got into an accident, her face doesn't look really that good, maybe she's blind to one eye, who really knows, but overall, it's likely that she doesn't probably look right. And if that is the case, then it makes sense why she's hiding it, and that's why she was like, it's kind of nice to see that, you know, Senku didn't ask for why I'm wearing this type of melon on my head. And so, I am curious, but at the same time, you know, why does she have that complex? That is something. But, when I do think about it, though, you gotta think about how ancient society was as well. When you think about ancient society, when it came to finding a partner, it didn't necessarily come down to royalty, what status you were in society, but also how strong you were, because being muscular was something that people really seeked out, like at least on the guy's side, and for females, it was for someone that was very beautiful, but also could be able to bear children. And so, in a lot of ways, that's how ancient history was. I'm not trying to say anything, just that's how it was. And because of that, maybe Suika thinks she isn't attractive or something, or there's something wrong with her, and so she's kind of like an outcast. She's segregated or something. That could be the case. But okay. Anything else to discuss? Don't think so. I think I kind of covered everything that needed to be covered. If I have missed anything, you know, let me know in the comments below. But it's a great episode. It does give us a lot, and I cannot wait to see exactly how the civilization reacts to Senku's ramen. But I love you guys. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. If you enjoy my content, you know, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.